and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. This is a joint webinar between AVST and Audiocodes. Our topic is Enhancing Skype for Business with Call Center and Call Recording Apps. This is Ann Rude with AVST Marketing, and today we have a couple of presenters for you. But before we get started, I just do have a couple of reminders. First of all, we are doing a Plantronics headphone giveaway for this webinar, so a couple of you who are on will be the lucky winners of that, and you can look for an email from me later today if you are one of those lucky winners. And next, just want to as we introduce both companies here, Audiocodes and AVST have a technology partnership. So we thought it was relevant with the Skype for Business topic to bring these two solutions together in a presentation. But just to clarify, we don't resell each other's solution. It is a technology partnership. So if you're interested in learning more about either or both of these solutions, you'll get some follow-up from one or both companies, depending on how that works. And then now to introduce our presenters, we have Ron Romanchik from Audiocodes. He is the VP of the Recording Technologies business line, and he'll be walking through his content first. And then we have Neil Butler, Director of Sales Engineering for AVST. And before I turn it over to Ron, just one last reminder, we will make these slides available to you. So in the email follow-up later today, we'll include a link to the recording as well as the slides if you'd like to download those. And lastly, we have time for Q&A at the end, and you're welcome to type your questions in during the webinar, and we'll have those queued up for Ron and or Neil toward the end. So with that, I'll let Ron get us started.
Well, thank you very much, Ann, and good afternoon or good morning, no matter, depending upon where you are. We want to welcome you to our webinar, and let's get started with what Audiocodes has been doing in the call recording and compliance space. First, I want to introduce you to the fact that Audiocodes has been supplying call recording technology to the industry for almost 18 years now, and primarily we were in the enabling technology space, but in about, I guess it was almost 7 or 8 years ago now that we introduced a product called SmartTAP, which is our recording system. It's a compliance recording system that was built from the ground up, and we kind of revolutionized the architecture around the product itself. So it opened up a wide range of new opportunities, and our focus primarily at the time was Microsoft Lync and now Skype for Business. So our products are geared around that, and with that, can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so what is compliance? You know, everybody talks about compliance and why are these laws passed. So basically, what compliance does is it protects the consumer conversations. These are laws and regulations that have been passed, and ensures that all communications with consumers are ethical, no matter what type of transaction is taking place. It protects sensitive data that could be exposed to and data incursion. Now, data incursion could be phone conversations. It could be a specific metadata or information that's taken over the phone, for instance, by a party. Things like social security numbers and credit card information, etc. Compliance is, so basically compliance will protect that information with specific laws, and it requires different companies who are dealing with these types of situations to be able to invoke these laws and regulations and protect their customers against any type of information that is either leaked through a data incursion or even whether it's intentional or unintentional. There's several different compliance laws currently in place. PCI, which is the Personal Credit Information Law, which is just about what everybody's familiar with. If you've ever purchased anything over the telephone, you know, people will tell you that your call is being recorded. If you've done banking over the phone or done inquiries, let's say you want to inquire about your mortgage or a loan or whatever, they will instruct you that the call is being recorded. Those are primarily personal credit information. HIPAA, which is more along the lines of, it's more healthcare oriented, and that's the Healthcare Information Patient Protection Act. Essentially what it allows the companies, the healthcare organizations, such as, it could be drug companies, it could be hospitals, doctors. You're starting to see more and more of the what we call the HIPAA waivers that are being signed. If you go to a doctor recently, you'll see that. Again, it's so that your medical information is protected and it's not disclosed, whether inadvertently or maliciously. There are a couple other compliance laws, MAD2, which is Market Abuse Directive, which basically protects against unethical manipulation of stocks and financial instruments. So there's different types of things that protect against data incursion and your information being exposed. Let's go on to the next slide. So how does our recording system address compliance? We address it primarily through several different areas. One of them is multi-channel support, meaning that we provide a complete picture of the conversations and chats. So in Skype for Business, what you're looking at primarily is voice conversations, and you're looking at IM chats. And there could be, for instance, those that have Skype for Business would know that, you know, you could be on a conversation today with someone, and someone else is IMing you simultaneously. It may not even pertain to the conversation that you're on the phone with, but again, you're responding. Those types of things, we have to look at all aspects of it so that we understand what that individual is doing at the desktop at all times. We also have in the compliance space announcement with opt-out, and that's again an IVR type function, but it's an announcement. I'm sure you've heard announcements of this call may be recorded for quality assurance or compliance purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So with those types of environments, we now allow the caller to opt out, and I'll go into more detail on that as we move forward. Another function of SmartTAP is the embedded Skype for Business toolbar, which allows a user, basically any user at large within the organization, to be able to record, pause, and resume conversations or recordings rather through Skype for Business. Also, with the embedded Skype for Business toolbar is our call tagging capabilities, which allow us to be able to tag a call specifically for other searchable data. For instance, an account number. Maybe it's a HIPAA compliance tag that we want to put on it. Whatever it may be, and that all can be searched within the system itself. We also have call and chat reviews, so you can monitor as well as review when you do a callback or search all the calls and chats that have occurred on that particular user. And finally, we have a media exporter, which allows all the recordings and all of the chat sessions to be exported on a user basis, time and date basis, you know, various combinations to be able to export it to other systems, such as like a compliance system. What you've seen in compliance systems today are there are different types of systems that take multiple inputs. We become an input to these compliance systems, which basically have rules and regulations set up in them. It's software, and it reviews the voice calls. It reviews the data calls, the data chats, email, social media, on and on and on, any type of communication, and monitors for any type of variation in compliance. Now let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more and do a deeper dive into multi-channel support. So what we have here is, these are a couple of screens from SmartTAP. We offer end customers, using Skype for Business, the ability to record the conversations, record the IM chats, record mobility calls through the mobile Skype for Business client, and we will soon be introducing our video calls. So what you'll be able to do is get a 360-degree view of what is happening on the customer conversation. And this is important for the compliance officer because they want to be able to see and hear exactly what the employee is saying to that customer, whether information is being leaked out to that particular customer, or any of the compliance regulations are inadvertently being violated. And again, this is very, very important, especially when you're dealing in a financial community, because when you look at financial, for instance, fines can range significantly depending upon the type of transaction that occurs. You could see fines of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars with regard to specific federal fines. Let's go on to the next slide. So what we also need to be able to do in compliance is to be able to offer an announcement where the caller will be notified. Now, depending upon a state-by-state basis, it could be a dual notification that's necessary, meaning that the caller and the callee are notified. It could be a single notification, meaning it would be the outbound caller. And in some cases, it may not. There may not be a notification that's necessary. But you're starting to see more and more states, even the states that don't require any type of notification, they're moving more towards that that caller where that we want to be able to notify the caller just to cover the bases. So with SmartTAP, we have this announcement server that's embedded within the architecture itself. And what it does is, as a call comes in, it will provide an announcement saying this call will be recorded for compliance purposes. Now, we provide an opt-out function, and that opt-out function serves a couple of purposes. One, you can hit one to accept it, obviously, and your call will be recorded. Or if you hit another key, whether it's 2 or 0 or whatever the case may be, you could either proceed on without being recorded, and that could be set up that way, or it could be set up as if the call is, if the person opts out of being recorded, the call is terminated. Now, it's purposely terminated because in any type of financial transaction that's over the phone, the call must be recorded. So, for instance, if I'm calling a stockbroker, if I don't want to be recorded, I cannot perform a transaction with that stockbroker. Now, what SmartTAP does is, in typical contact center or in typical phone systems, you'll see that if a person has opted out of the call and the call is hung up, it could be possibly an abandoned call. Well, we don't look at it that way. We log the call as the person did opt out, they did receive the recording, they opted out of the call, and we show that in our data, as well as we can pass that along either in a report or we can export it out to another location, to another system, so such as a CDR system or whatever. So you're not seeing an abandoned call, you're seeing an opt-out call. We do support text-to-speech in 26 languages. We use the Microsoft platform for that. And again, as I said, all that information can be stored in the system. It is stored in the system, and it can be searched on as well, so you can see all the opt-outed calls. Next slide. All right, so what we've actually done also is to get SmartTAP out, the recording capabilities out to the masses in the enterprise. We've designed SmartTAP to be embedded within the Skype for Business toolbar, the Skype for Business client. So as you use Skype for Business as a client, you'll see that there'll be a menu option to be able to select SmartTAP. When you select SmartTAP, there'll be a screen that pops up. If you can hit the slide again. So you'll see the toolbar pop up. You'll see the toolbar pop up with the conversation that's occurring. This is a live conversation on Skype for Business. On the bottom, you'll see that you have video option, mute, share screen, or hang up on the call. On the left side, you'll see texting. The SmartTAP portion of it, you'll see a floppy disk. And if you clicked on that floppy disk, what happens is you start recording the call. It'll turn red, it'll start recording it. If you click it again, you could pause. If you click it again, it resumes. So, and SmartTAP's recording will stop essentially once the call is completed. So once you hang up on the call, we stop the recording function. So this is really designed for a record on demand and someone that normally doesn't need to be involved in the in a transaction type environment. So it might be a supervisor, or it might be some sort of a manager, let's say a fund manager that normally would get involved in a conversation of a transaction conversation, but then starts discussing something with a client and they want to record it. They can click on that floppy disk and start recording. Next slide. So you can just keep going through this. It's gonna. So there's the pause. You can also tag the call as well. Okay, keep going. Okay, so what we also can do in that Skype for Business toolbar is to tag calls. As I mentioned earlier, what we're able to do here is we can set up newly defined fields, database fields, that could be sorted on as well and displayed, reported, and exported as well. So through the Skype for Business toolbar, what the user would do is click on the call tag, and the information would pop up. So you could see that there is for instance, a tag there. I could select one. In this case, you could set a note. You could do write what company it is. You can tag it as a malicious call. You can put an account ID. There's other information that can be put into this into the call tagging itself. Now, in addition to that, once the information is put in there, I think if you hit the forward again, if you hit this next slide, yeah, you could select a tag, hit it again. Okay, so you can also have other tags. So for instance, if we selected feedback, we can now have a value set on that, whether it's a very good, the call is very good, and it's a great situation where the person's answering correctly, and that all could be tagged in there. You hit it again. Okay, one thing you do notice is as we tagged it as feedback at the top, you could see in the middle of the screen there where it says tag, we have a date and date added, and then who added the call, the tag, and if there's any type of value. We also can designate it as whether it's a private tag or it's a public tag, meaning that who can sort on it or whatever the case may be. Now, once that's done, everything is appended on top of that. So in this case, now I want to add account ID. So I would select account ID and I'd be able to put the format in. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so in this case now I've done that, and you can see that it's appended again, and all that information is in there. Now I could tag it for follow-up and click it again. So once I click it for follow-up, it's all set. and you know, it's pretty much we can add when the follow-up needs to be, and off we go. All right, click it again. One of the things I want to make mention of is the fact that because SmartTAP is integrated with Skype for Business, and Skype for Business is integrated with Outlook, everything meshes together. So anything, any recordings that are emailed, you can download and email recordings if you have the correct user rights. That's all done through Outlook. Any of these notifications, like for instance the follow-up, is all done through Outlook as well. Our user database is the Active Directory. So all the administration is done in the Microsoft Active Directory, and we automatically get an update to that. So as users are added or removed, if the person needs to be recorded, all we need to do is go into our database at that point from an administrative perspective and add a recording profile to that individual. So it's the person's automatically added into our system. What we also can do is search and retrieve on call and chats. So from the same screen, we can search our chat sessions. We could do it based on groups. We could do it based on individuals. We could do time and date stamp. There's a wide range of different searchables that we could do as within the chat session, and be able to display back a grid. You'll see on the left-hand side there of the screen. At the top of the screen, you'll see a list of chats that occurred. To drill down, you just simply click on it, and you'd be able to see the chat. Now, the chat set up chronologically, just as you would see on your, let's say, on your cell phone, where you're looking at, you know, the first in, first out basis. And all that information is there and available to you. Plus, you can combine that with the voice recording, so that if a person's on a Skype for Business call and they're chatting simultaneously with the same individual, you can have that full conversation available to you for review. Next. Okay, and finally we have this our media exporter, and our media exporter allows the user to be able to, or an administrator to be able to go in and select by time and date stamp, as well as look at groups or individuals or a single individual, information about recordings and chats, be able to export it to a manifest, which could be in, let's say, an Excel file, for instance. So if you look at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see that this is in an Excel type format. So you'll see who the user is, what direction the call was in, what the start time is, the answer time, calling party, called party, and then all the way to the right, you'll see play. What we also do is zip the file in an MP3 format or a WAV format, so that as you receive this manifest, let's say in Excel, you can click on that and play back the recording. And again, this is all done based on user rights, so not everyone would have access to this. But what's important here is to be able to export this information, first of all, in an Excel format, but more importantly, through our API to, let's say, a compliance system, which can take that data and analyze it and put it up against the compliance rules, and to make sure that no compliance laws are being broken. Next. So the benefits of using SmartTAP for compliance, really, we improve controls, processes, and governance of compliance requirements. We're a data point for compliance systems, but we've taken the necessary steps to be able to the user with encrypted data, storage of data, digital signature, which means that no original file can be accessed without a digital signature, so that those original files cannot be modified. Anything that we operate in within the SmartTAP environment is always a copy of the original file. It's never the original. So our original files are admissible in court if necessary. The SmartTAP also improves the efficiencies within the systems and processes by allowing you to be able to record conversations. Anybody within the Skype for Business enterprise can literally record a conversation through our toolbar. We can support not only trunk calls, we can support internal calls. We also can support remote calls. So if you have a remote user that's working from a home office, I could record that user. If they're running on a mobile phone, for instance, and they're doing chat and voice conversations through the Skype for Business client, I could record that as well. Again, we're providing a full 360-degree view of the customer interaction by doing a multi-channel capture, the voice, the IM, mobility, and soon to be released the video side of it as well. So you will see a total package of what happens with the particular employee that is talking to a customer. And that's important primarily for protection of the company and its customers. All right, next. And I think that ends my piece.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Neil.
My name is Neil Butler with AVST. I'll do the last part of this. I'd like to thank you all for coming as well. And we're going to take a look at just one particular piece of our solution, but a kind of a quick overview. We've been in the industry since 1982. And from a unified communications point of view, we have a very broad product offering. But what we found over the years is no one does everything. So we have a history of partnering with best-of-breed service providers. And that's what we're talking about here. For one of our solutions in particular, we've found SmartTAP as a very attractive addition to that solution. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that solution. Within the markets of interoperability, we can connect to just about anything out there. But one of our key areas of focus right now is Skype for Business. And Skype for Business is an interesting and attractive solution. It does some things that are very, very important, very new, but it also has a few holes in the product, primarily from being so new. So what we found is there are things we can deploy to help shore up a Skype for Business kind of solution. And we're a little unique in the way we do this. We can actually connect to Skype through one of their trusted applications, and that allows us to replace the call processing and messaging functionality that would normally be provided by Exchange Unified Messaging. And we now give the user more choices in terms of how they're going to actually perform those functions. And this is things like whether you want to store your messages within the Exchange infrastructure or not. Once again, that's another one of those compliance issues that people deal with. But there are several other areas as well. And one of those is our informal call center product called TeamQ. Now, TeamQ is not your basic ACD system. It's a little different. It's really targeted at smaller, informal work groups, but who also have the need to cover incoming calls. But typically, they're not the take a call, hang up, take another call kind of call center. They're what we call knowledge workers as opposed to process workers. Process workers take a call, go into wrap up, take another call, go into wrap up. But that's a more traditional ACD type of solution. We look more for knowledge workers that are people who are taking calls, but they probably have other duties as well. And probably within the work group, there's similar skill sets. So not everyone is taking the same kind of call. There's a lot of those small informal work groups in an enterprise, and this system is targeted directly for those. So if you look at distributing calls within any environment, you certainly have hunt groups or response groups. In the case of Skype, it's kind of the low-end functionality. And you have full-blown contact centers, multimedia contact centers at the high end. We definitely sit in between here. We're not looking to replace the large contact centers that are out there. We're looking to take an enterprise that maybe has 4 or 5 groups that didn't go on the contact center because it wasn't quite the right fit, would have been not quite doing the job well and would have been very expensive. and those groups didn't really get much attention in terms of handling incoming calls, and that's where we'd focus TeamQ. So the TeamQ functionality at the highest level is distributing calls among a work group, and it does it in a number of ways. It certainly can be set up in the traditional ACDQ push model. When the agent gets off a call, they get the next call, which would traditionally be the oldest call. But there's other ways of distributing calls. We actually focus mostly with TeamQ on what we call the pull model. With the pull model, we're going to answer a call for that queue. We're going to use some of the capabilities within the CX product to interface with that caller. We're going to actually try and find out who's calling and why. And we do that by answering or asking them up to 4 questions, 2 numeric input questions and 2 multiple choice questions. And we're going to take that information, we're going to take the numeric input and do a data dump or a data dip out into some database they have. Any database that can be accessed through a web service or an API, we can go in and perhaps take that account number they put in and bring back the product name and the software version they're at. Or take an employee number and bring back their location and the type of computer they have. We can turn that numeric information along with the multiple choice information into metadata, and then we display that data on the screen. And you can see a typical screen here. So maybe I have 10 or 15 agents, and this is a this is probably, from looking at the various pieces there, this is probably like an internal help desk where somebody has called and we've asked them input your employee number, and we use that to bring back the employee name. We've maybe done a multiple choice question. You need help with Windows, with Linux, whatever is available within that group, and they picked one. And now we've basically got a one-line entry for every caller. As an agent, I can look at that screen and look at the requirements, the skills required to handle the various calls, and I can select the appropriate call based on my skill level. This is pretty much a pull model, skills-based routing call distribution system. So I might take the oldest call, but if you look down here, there's a couple of Linux calls, and even though the oldest call is Windows support, if there's only a few of us do Linux support, or only me, I would probably take that call out of order. I would highlight that call, I would hit the take call button, that call would be transferred to me, and now that screen would show that I was on that call. And I would take that call deliberately out of order based on the skills requirements to handle it. It might also be territory requirements, different customer assignment groups, anything that required kind of a decision-making process on who should take the call. That call remains on the screen the duration that the agent's on it. When the agent hangs up, they hit the hang up button on our application, that call goes away. So this is a different kind of call distribution than a traditional ACD system. Now what's really good about our partnership here with Audiocodes is this particular application, TeamQ, does not have recording capabilities. And there's a lot of times in the informal work groups like this where recording of all calls really isn't something that's needed. But there are also times when it would be handy to record those calls. And since this will very often be sold along with our solution anytime it goes into a Skype environment, their ability to have the Skype client with the call recording as part of this process is part of the synergy that we feel with this product. If somebody calls in and doesn't want to wait, we offer the ability to request a callback. So the user would either put in their callback number or we would verify their ANI number if we'd captured it. When the agent decided to take that call, when it had worked its way up the queue or when they had manually selected it, a callback window comes up and I now can make that callback. As long as I connect, I start the call record. If not, I can re-queue it or I can put down the reason why I wasn't able to get in touch with that person. So now I have this setup where I'm sitting behind Skype. This just shows generic PBX, but it'd be the same thing behind Skype. I have agents, and those agents might be on the network. They might be working from home, anywhere where they have a data connection. It works fine. And then I can take internal or external calls, and I'm using this screen to control how I'm going to do call routing. So it's a different kind of discipline than a traditional ACD queue, but for those informal work groups with disparate skill sets, it really is the best way to handle these kind of incoming calls. I also can take a call and And based on how the screens are programmed, how the queue is programmed, I can right-click on that call that took it, and I'll get a little drop-down window that'll offer me a screen pop. Now, this is not a CTI screen pop with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hardware and programming. This, again, is any application that's running on the agent's desktop that has an API or a web service input. I can write a little screen pop, and that's, you're seeing this down here under link. There's just a little simple screen pop, and I can use the customer ID that was input, and I can pass that into that application running on the agent screen, and I can pop that screen open to the relative record. Here's just an example where we're using Salesforce. We get the ID account, and then we can pop that open for the regular seat. So we never require a CTI link. We always function in whatever environment is there. If it's Skype, that's fine. We have no problem doing it in Skype. If it's an older via PBX, works fine the same way. We give the agent information, not only on the calls that are active, but they can see a screen for the other agents, ones that might not be on the call. Now, because if you think of this in use as an IT support group, it's a really easy one to see how this would function. You would have agents that are on the phone. You might have agents waiting to take phone calls. But you might also have agents that are at desk visits, installing patches, who are doing research projects on the web. It would just be nice if, as an agent, I could look at all the agents in the queue and see their status, so I could make decisions about what I want to do. If I want to go to lunch, or if I want to maybe go do a research project. We give this extra information, this metadata, to the agents. This is a queue where we're empowering agents far more than an average ACD queue. We're letting them control their own work environment because we're assuming it's for a group that has a more complex work environment. There's logs. So as a supervisor, I can go ahead and see what's going on in my queue, what's up with any agent or any particular queue, and then I can export all this information in any of the common files, spreadsheets, text, PDF, Word document, etc. And once it's exported, of course, I then can manipulate that information if there's something specific I'm looking at. If I'm looking up a call record from a specific caller who called in later and wanted to know something. All this information is made readily available on the system. Besides the logs, we actually have a full reporting package. This reporting package is written in Microsoft SQL with the SQL writer. So not only can you access this and manipulate it, but it's also very easy to write custom reports if you're looking for a particular type of information extract. And you can see the reports have the detailed records plus the summary. There's 21 reports, and the reports run the gamut from reports on agents, on queues, on individual ID numbers that are entered. It's a very detailed reporting package. If you look at the way a typical call works, someone calls in, and I have a script, and these scripts can be developed by the supervisor. They're really, really easy to program. In this case, I'm going to say, welcome to the help desk. I'm going to read them back their ANI number, and the reason I'm probably doing this is that I will offer them a callback as one of their options. If this is a valid number, they press 1. Otherwise, if they press 9, they can enter a different number. Once I have that down, I go through the script portion that to try and find out who they are and what they want. So in this case, here's a numeric input question for their employee number and a multiple choice input for what it is they're looking for. Once I have that information, I have the option of playing to the caller the sort of traditional queue announcement. Your position in queue is 4, and the estimated wait time is 45 seconds. But to be honest, I might not want to use that in this kind of queue, since I'm allowing agents to pull calls not based on the longest time in queue. This number could be misleading. So it's there if you want to use it, depending on how you structured your queue, but it also can be left out of the script. And now I'm going to ask them, what do you want to do? You want to hold? Press 1. To leave a message, press 2. To request a callback, press 3. If they press 1, they'll be in the queue. I'll generate that one-line entry on the screen, and they'll be waiting on the system until an agent gets to their call. If they press 2, I'll send them into our voicemail system to a specific mailbox and prompt them to leave a message, and then that message queue can be monitored by the agents as well. If they press 3, I will verify that they're queued for a callback, disconnect the call, but I will still put that one-line entry onto the screen. It'll still age the same way calls that are holding does. When the agent gets ready to take that call and hits it, they'll get that callback screen that we saw earlier. So now I have the screen, I have calls there that are waiting. As an agent, I have a toolbar across the top. If I click Take Call, I highlight a call, it'll transfer it to me. Click Message, it'll send them into the message queue. If I click Hold, it'll actually hold that call, and on the screen, it'll show the other agents that I'm holding that call for me. So this might be the case where someone called in for support, you gave them that first step, reboot the system and call back. That doesn't work. When you saw their return call, you click Hold that call because you really should be the one to talk to them next. If I click the Next Call button, I will get the oldest call in queue. We've been in the communications market for a long time, started more as a traditional telephony dealer 30 years ago, but over the years, as the industry's changed, so is our focus. We are now actually one of the few Microsoft partners to carry dual competency, gold communications and gold messaging both. And we find that that's the level that's necessary if you're going to go out into the unified communications world today. There's a lot of things we do for Skype. We have separate presentations that you can find online, or you can get in touch with us and we can go through. There's things besides just the ACD functionality that basically is a stronger version than response groups. We have messaging pieces, we have mobile pieces. There's a lot of things that Skype customers will find our product a nice fit into that mix. And now I think we're ready for some questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Neil and Ron. So we do have, there's a handful of questions that have come through already. If you'd like to submit a question, use the orange arrow in the upper right corner to expand your webinar panel, and you should see the question box toward the bottom there. Okay, so first question, this one looks like it's for Ron. Ron, can the tagging be after the call has completed?
You can go in and tag the call after the call has been completed, yes. What you would do is, essentially what's going to happen is once the call is terminated, though, you're going to have to go back in and search for the call and then go back and tag the call itself. So there's no wrap-up period, essentially, in Skype for Business. So you're probably better off tagging it as you're going along. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Another question again on SmartTAP. Can the SmartTAP call records be integrated with Microsoft Dynamics CRM?
Yes, it can. We have a REST API that allows Microsoft Dynamics to connect directly to SmartTAP, and all of the metadata can be exported. You can also retrieve voice calls if you wanted to be able to have those calls either attached as an attachment in Microsoft Dynamics. You could do that as well.
Okay, great. Actually, a follow-on question for Neil on a similar topic. Neil, you had up the Salesforce image. Does TeamQ also integrate with Microsoft Dynamics?
So all of our integrations have to do that small script that I showed on the screen. So yes, if you were using Dynamics, we could do the same kind of screen pop.
Okay. Another question for Neil. Can the caller use speech with TeamQ?
Right now, there's no speech recognition functionality in TeamQ. That's something we might look forward to in the future. But today, the navigation is strictly DTMF.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's see. I'm just scrolling through. There's a couple of questions about getting the slides. So I will answer that. The slides, yes, we will make those available to you in the follow-up email, and I also did upload them to the handouts area, which is near the question box if you want to download the PDF of the slides right now before the follow-up email. Let's see. AVST question, is callback supported with TeamQ?
Yes. If they request a callback, what we'll do is we'll drop that call. We'll tell the caller that their callback has been queued. That call will stay in the queue. You'll see the one-line entry. It'll tell you basically, the same kind of information that a regular call did. When the agent wants to take that call and highlight it, instead of a take call button showing up, a make call button shows up. You click make call, that little pop-up window that was in the presentation comes up, showing you the number it's going to call. You hit call, It connects. As soon as you connect, you hit a button and it starts logging the record.
Okay. So Neil, next question. There is no push option with TeamQ?
No, it does. It can be set up just like a traditional ACD queue. In other words, it would push calls to the agent who had been idle the longest. And it does that, and we have a number of customers who use it for that purpose. It's just there's so much more built in, designed for when the pull model is used, that we don't see it as the main purpose for the application. But it's easy to set it up for a push model.
Okay, here's a question, looks like for both of you. So do both of these SmartTAP and TeamQ work on the vNext Microsoft new version of Skype for Business?
Yes, we're SmartTAP is certified on all versions of Skype for Business. As a matter of fact, we have our recertification announcement coming out probably within the next week or so. So we've just finished our testing. So good question for us on the Audiocodes side.
And from our side, we don't officially support anything that isn't a released version of the product. But the technology we use to integrate with Skype it's their technology, the trusted application functionality within Skype itself. So unless they were to do something to get rid of that, it's pretty hard to believe that the next version would have any problems integrating with us.
Okay, next, Neil, does TeamQ have a real-time display for queue status?
No, unfortunately it doesn't. It does have a set of database records that can be tapped for that, and we've had a couple of people actually build their own real-time displays, but it isn't a piece that you can buy from us. All of the information about the call queues, not only the historical information, but the what's going on right now type of information is stored in a Microsoft SQL database that you can have access to. So building something that displays that would be fairly easy if you have those kind of programming skills.
Okay, and another question about callback, again with TeamQ. How does the customer know when the call is going to be returned?
So I'm not quite sure what you would want as an answer for that. Basically, the call gets returned as soon as an agent takes it. So their only real indication would be the incoming call with the agent on the line.
Okay, we can certainly have someone follow up offline on that one just to make sure we understand what the question was asking. Okay, I'm just doing a quick scroll. It looks like we hit all the questions, and just want to, again, thank everyone for joining. As follow-up, look for the email from us, which will include a link to download the slides as well as a link to the recording. And I will also include contact info for both companies in case you have follow-on questions and you'd like to reach out. We'll make that easy for you to do so. And lastly, I will also include a link to some additional upcoming AVST webinars. Neil mentioned very briefly some of our that we have other Skype for Business applications. And I think there's a webinar scheduled on the calendar to cover those in more detail in early June. So if you're interested in additional Skype applications, that might be one you want to join us for. And so with that, we'll go ahead and close it up. Just again, want to thank everyone and wish you a great day.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.